So I have to tell you, these family Zooms have been a delightful opportunity for us to get to meet wonderful people all over the state of Indiana and to hear from a lot of different perspectives. And so tonight you're going to hear from Carly Keiper, who's an educational specialist at West Central Indiana Special Services Cooperative, which is located in Crawfordsville, Indiana. She has also been a high school life skills teacher and a Medicaid waiver clinician. Carly, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Dr. Pratt. Right. Well, hello, friends. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. And I hope that we can have fun learning together tonight. Um, as you know, tonight we're going to be talking about the power of concise and consistent language on persons with autism spectrum disorder. A little bit about me. I was a life skills teacher. I worked with high schoolers, and that was a ton of fun. And then I made the switch to be a Medicaid waiver behavior clinician. So I provided in home therapy to people between the ages of 3 and 42. And this structured learning and this concise, consistent language was really one of my areas of expertise. So, this is where I saw the importance of concise and consistent language in the home. I saw the success, and it was so exciting. And it's also one of those like no fuss strategies. You don't really have to, have a bunch of materials in order to do this right. So I'm excited to share it with you guys this evening. All right, so what is concise and consistent language? Well, we know that we want to communicate with our child, right? And we're either going to communicate some information or we're maybe going to make a request of them. Those are the two areas that I would really encourage you to use this strategy. Concise and consistent language is the easiest way for people on the spectrum to pick up the message and understand its connection to meaning. So concise, meaning that it's short. We're not going to use a ton of language like I will do tonight. And consistent, we're making sure that we use the same phrase in the same way every time and that we're making that connection to the environment or the situation that holds its meaning. So an example of this that you guys probably all know or have experience with watching on television is that classic, ringing of the bell and the mom shouting, dinner. If you were outside playing, you knew that that meant that you were going to come in, you were going to sit at the table, and you were going to be fed a delicious meal, right? Your mom didn't have to say, come in and sit at the table, it's dinner time. She just said, dinner. That's the great example of concise and consistent language. So now let's break it down a little bit. Concise. I like to think of this as like a plain burger, right? All we have is the meat. We don't need any pickles and mustard and mayo. So this is a bit of the opposite of what we're taught in society, right? Growing up, we're all taught that we're supposed to use metaphors and fancy language and do a lot of storytelling. However, when we use this strategy, we want to make sure that we are using just the main words of the message, okay? If not, all these extra words, I like to say that our people get lost in the sauce, right? So when we use especially figurative language, those words might be words that the person that we're communicating with doesn't know yet or is still connecting the meaning to, and they're so focused on processing that information that they're missing out on the actual meaning. Another example of this is, I don't know about you guys, but for me, it was in science class. Cell division, right? They would use fancy words like mitosis and hypotheses and theories and laws, when really cell division just means a cell starts out as one and becomes two. So we used all that fancy language when really that's the message. So keeping that in mind, that's what we want to use or to do when we are using concise and consistent language. So we want to teach our meaning. So we want to model our language with the meaning. So for example, if we were to say bath time, then we might take our child by the hand, lead them in the first time, point to our bathtub or put our hand on the bathtub and say bath time. We don't need to say, it's time for you to get up, we're gonna go in the bath, it's time for us to take off all of our clothes, just bath time. And then we're connecting that meaning to the visual. Like I said, you can use hand over hand. You could use just if the visual is within an eye shot, so if the item itself is right there, you can use that, or You might want to use visual cards depending upon the situation and your child. We want to engage multiple senses if we can. So like I said, using those gestures, connecting a visual or that hand over hand prompting. And then when we use it again, going into the consistent, we start to connect that message to that environmental piece. All right, so an example of this is instead of saying, honey, go into the kitchen and sit at the dinner table, we're about to do a craft. Instead, I'm just going to show my craft time, sit please. So I have the message, the information that I'm providing, and then I also have a directive in there, sit please. All right, consistent, like Sheldon's knock. I don't know if any of you guys watch The Big Bang Theory. There are some people out there who hypothesize that one of the characters, Sheldon Cooper, may have high functioning autism. I don't know. But he does have a very consistent behavior. Anytime he wants to get the attention of his neighbor, Penny, he goes to her door and he knocks. Penny, Penny, Penny. The same way every single time. That's how we should be when we're using our concise and consistent language with our child. We want to make sure that we're using the same words in the same order as often as we can, if not every time. We want to, again, link those tasks to their location or link that idea to its visual, to its environment. We want to go to our child. This is another thing that's a little hard, I know. We're used to just calling to our kids, especially, if you have multiple children and some are neurotypical. When you say, hey, come over here, I want to show you something, they often respond by just doing so. But our friends on the spectrum, we want to make sure that we are going to them and we're helping deliver that message with our actions. All right, so an example that I frequently use on how concrete people with autism can be, why it's important for us to be really consistent, is with Temple Grandin. So Temple is a famous woman with autism who has transformed the animal production industry, but she also is an amazing advocate for people on the autism spectrum. She showed herself by her own actions that someone on the spectrum can go on to do amazing things, get their doctorate, and change the world. Well, when Temple was a little girl, she had a nanny who helped her gain some social skills and pedestrian safety skills. And I wish that I could find this video to link it. If someone finds it, I would so appreciate it. But there was one time when she was giving a speech and she shared that her nanny took her to the end of her road and pointed at a stop sign and said, when you see this sign, you need to stop your body and look both ways. Well, every time Temple would go to that stop sign, she would stop and she would look both ways, like her nanny said. But the one on the other side of the street, she didn't do. So what's important with concise and consistent language is that we start to generalize that skill. And generalizing just means that we begin to make the connection in various environments. So if I'm going to use, let's say, the bathroom, I'm going to teach that, let's go to the bathroom, or bathroom time is not just the bathroom in my home, but also the bathroom at the library, the bathroom at school, so on and so forth. So it's really important that you connect with your child's teacher or therapists and share your concise and consistent language so that they can use that phrase as well. So again, if it's bath time or bathroom time, we're going to use those same languages in various environments. All right. Sorry, I have some notes here. One other thing that I want to note with the bathroom especially, it's a room that has a toilet and a sink, but we call it so many different things, right? We may call it potty, we may call it restroom, we may call it bathroom, we may call it loo. So make sure that you're using that same word every time. And then as your child makes the connection, that's when you can start to introduce other ones. That's not always my area of expertise, and I would be happy to share, have some of our other colleagues share. the importance of generalizing those other words and teaching those other words to connect to the same meaning. But for now, with concise and consistent language, I would establish one word, and that's the word I would use every single time. All right, so the power of a statement. Another thing that often happens, especially in our society today, is we want to present our messages very kindly, sweetly. And so we might phrase it as a question and not realize it. A great example is often you'll hear this with kindergarten teachers. They'll say, "Friends, can you come to the mat?" But to our friends with autism, they hear, "Can I come to the mat? Yes or no?" And that offers them, because it's a question, it offers a yes or a no. It offers choice. So if you're going to give a directive, I would encourage you to use statements. In the first couple of times, especially if you're not used to it, like I was, it's gonna feel a little harsh or it's gonna feel uncomfortable, but keep at it. I learned this little strategy from Chris Stewart Baker. She is an autism consultant with Shelbyville. She came into my classroom when I was teaching in life skills, and she said, "I understand why your students are non-compliant. You're offering them yes or no all the time, and they're saying no. And you can't blame them. You offered it that way." So I had to learn to rephrase. So use those statements if it's a directive. We also want to remember that our friends on the spectrum are concrete processors. So we don't want to use any figurative languages, and we want to make sure that we're using actual names of items. So maybe you call like the sink the scrubby or something. Even though that's fun and it's novel, it can get very confusing to our concrete processors. So instead, we want to just use the word sink, the word that we'll use across environments. And give it time. I have learned so much with this idea. As you can see, I'm a quick talker. I'm an excited person. I can be a really fast mover. But when I'm working with my friends with autism, I have to remember that processing time really matters. It might take them longer to interpret a message and respond to it. I had a student who was showing a little bit of trouble responding to prompts. I would ask her to do something and she wouldn't follow through. We were working on work boxes and I would say, "Put the tile in the bag. Put the tile in the bag." And she wasn't responding, or she would do only one and then stop again. Well, I was realizing that I was over prompting. So if we think about it like a computer, maybe if you guys had dial-up, I did. I grew up in the country and I had a dial-up computer. And when I would get impatient, if I was waiting for a website to load, I would hit the button again, like go. Well, each time I would hit the button, it would start the process all over again. And that's what I was doing to my student. Every time I would prompt, she was hearing that message and she was having to take the time to process it. When I realized this and I took time to observe and to wait, I realized that her processing time was 3 minutes. So I am going to show you, if we did 3 minutes, I think you guys would think that my screen froze. So we're going to do 10 seconds. I'm going to give a prompt and then I'm going to wait 10 seconds. And I just want you guys to feel what that wait time is. So bath time. So that was 10 seconds. Imagine what 3 minutes feels like, right? It can feel like a long time. But it's so important that we allow that processing time to happen. That is when our child is making the connection between the directive that was given and the action or the situation or the item that they're supposed to interact with. So give that time. Don't be afraid, especially when we're introducing those new language concepts. And we want to make sure that we get so excited when we see expected behavior. We get excited when We win the lottery. We get excited when our favorite team wins, but we often don't realize that we should be given the same excitement to our children when they're learning new concepts, right? That is a reinforcement for them, especially verbal praise, hugs, cheers. Those are all really great things. So, anytime your child follows through with your concise, consistent directive, or even when you inform them of something and you see that they're understanding, don't be afraid to get excited. Hooray! Great job! Wow, you did such a wonderful job. Thank you. All of those things are so important. And when we're teaching this concept, it's important that we introduce it in ways that create success for our children. We want to start with preferred activities, times where they are they can follow through and get excited with you. So examples are if they love to go on community outings. That's a bad idea right now with COVID, but maybe riding in the car is something that's exciting to them. Maybe you say, car time, let's go. And then seatbelt, please. Wow, great job. And then we get to go on a car ride. Or maybe it's their favorite leisure activity, like a puzzle. Puzzle time. Here's the puzzle. I get naturally reinforced. Mealtime is another really easy one to do that with, right? If you say dinner, sit, and they come and sit, wow, there's this delicious meal in front of me that I get to enjoy. So start with those really easy, preferred activities, and then we can start to transition into the things that are more challenging. Speaking of challenges, even though this doesn't require materials, it does require a lot of change on behalf of the parent or caregiver. So you're going to have to really stop to think yourself about what words you're going to use, how you can make them clear and concise, and also how you're going to say them the same way every time in the same environment. You'll get this wrong. I did. Everyone who uses this strategy did. I still do sometimes when I get out of practice. I might phrase things as questions. And so I have to stop myself, give my student a 5-minute break, and then come back and phrase it as the directive. So you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Be kind to yourself, but do not give up, right? That consistency is not just for your child, it's for you. So continue to use that language, continue to make those connections. We have a little grumpy friend here. You're going to have moments where you have your grumpy friend and they're not going to follow through with the directive. But when we're using it with intention and consistently, you're going to see great things happening. Keep going. You can do it. I believe in you. All right. So that's all. I think I flew through that. But if you have any specific questions to your child or your home environment or caregiving environment, I would be happy to answer those.